Okay. Maga Man. In your skill floor ceiling tier list, you mentioned that you had changed your mind about Pharah's skill ceiling because you were surprised at how much the projectile aim could be pushed. I was wondering what makes Pharah's projectile style unique. Why is it the case for Farah, Hanzo, Torb, and Junk? Okay, so the difference of why Pharah's projectile tier list was impactful to me is because she simultaneously has an easier time increasing her skill ceiling, but also it's harder to get there at the same time. In other words, I think Pharah's skill ceiling is incredibly high because you can utilize mobility as Pharah that these heroes can't. So you look at Hanzo, Torb, and Junk. Hanzo has a little mobility. Junk has a little mobility, but Pharah's mobility allows her, is like an entirely different like skill, like a skill set to learn how to move as Pharah with your jump jet, with your concussive blast, with your positioning as Pharah is really tricky, and then just your fuel management. And what this does is it makes her harder to play, but it also means that when it comes to like about Pharah's skills, because you're surprised how much projectile aim, it's because of how much flexibility she has with her positioning that allows her projectile aim to be pushed to the limits more. In other words, as a Junkrat player, you could be very accurate, but the nature of your mobility limits how much you can push out of your accuracy. In other words, you could be the world's most accurate Junkrat player, but you couldn't out-duel McCree at mid-range because you couldn't, like, your mobility doesn't let you do that. Pharah does. Pharah can mobilize and move herself to where she can take a duel at McCree. Now, she still has to hit her shots or she dies, but she can. So Pharah's mobility allows her to push her limits with her shots, because with Pharah, you can literally direct rocket every single shot. With Hanzo, a lot of your shots are just going to be spamming in a general direction and hoping they hit. With Torb, you're going to be spamming it on a choke. With Junkrat, you're going to be spamming it on a choke. Sometimes spamming on a choke that's something you can't even see. Pharah's mobility allows her to always have a specific target in mind when she aims her shots. And also Pharah's mobility allows her to have extended peak windows. In other words, she can continue to position and peak rocket, peak rocket, peak rocket that other heroes can't do. So she's not only, her mobility allows her not only to like increase her skill ceiling, but her mobility allows her to take more shots. In other words, think of like Tracer's mobility and how it enables her mechanics to matter more. Because if you think about a Tracer, how many clips does a Tracer unload in a team fight? Dozens, you know what I'm saying? In a single team fight, like clip after clip after clip after clip after clip. And every single one of those clips has 40 bullets. It has varying distances, short, medium, long. And Tracer is, and Pharah is very similar to that. If that makes sense. Right, she's able to put herself in positions where she's able to hit great shots, where she's able to put herself in positions where she has to hit challenging, high-risk, high-reward shots. And she's constantly doing that, constantly. At least the top-tier Pharah's players are. Every rocket could be, you know, a game changer. And with Junkrat, there's just a certain level of RNG. Torb is just a certain level of RNG. And there's just a certain level of just AFK and spam. Now, maybe I see a Hanzo player that like really pushes the limits with aggressive positioning, and this hero like impresses me more with what you can do with it. But as of right now, not as much. You have a question? If Mei gets a nano boost, does it also decrease the freezing time? No, I don't think so. I don't think so. I think it increases the actual damage that the freeze does, but I think the threshold for freeze is separate from the actual damage it does. Right. So the deal with Pharah is that like it's not that she's incredibly hard to play all the time, but that if it's played very well, a Pharah is like the difference between a good Pharah and a great Pharah and a good Hanzo and a great Hanzo, I think is more significant. Hypothetically speaking, if you were to make a Doomfist guy, what would be the key fundamentals however the bits and bops and aquans that I should be encouraged to include? I mean, definitely cooldown cycling. So like you definitely need to learn, like folks need to learn like about the 2 cooldowns in, 1 cooldown out, slam versus punch, rocket punching into a shot uppercut, then slamming away. So like you would need to go over a lot of the more micro Doomfist guides and explain like not necessarily rollouts, but how you engage as Doomfist. Like a lot of people think Doomfist, oh, you just charge a punch and you punch the enemy team. But like that's the vast minority of what Doomfist does in an actual team fight. So like I think you would need to go put a lot more emphasis. I went over a lot of positioning. I went over a lot of game sense and target priority. But you would need to talk about like what an engage with a Doomfist actually should look like, which I did a little bit. I was a mid-masters hit scam before taking a break from rank, dropping to high diamond now. After a couple of reviews by 2 different people whom I trust and know what they're talking about, and simply knowing myself as a person, I think myself is something on my back. I can easily make mistakes or I don't feel like I've been able, even though I try, I can get myself to not care about my SR. Ever since I picked up comp again towards the end of season 25, I had a negative win rate, often getting constant things that must work because it just bothers me. Taking better, more aggressive angles, taking the fastest move, 2 weeks. Often just forgot about tilt. I think one of the people who reviewed my gameplay recommended me playing it all because I wouldn't care about starting as much, but I'm not going to try because of a backspin, so I try to want to practice all before taking me. I mean, this is a tough question. For me, if you are really concerned about winning or losing, then absolutely play in an alt. I think that is like a one quick hack for getting yourself to care less about the nitty-gritty details and stuff, for sure. Definitely do that. If you've had a bad association with it, then maybe you need to get over the association. Like, the problem with mentality questions is there's just not simple answers. I think we went over this earlier. You asked this question earlier on, and I think my goal was, my suggestion was to give yourself more concrete goals to work on. Don't just say, I need to improve at this. You need to give yourself, I need to be thinking about this every single team fight. And the goal is that I do this every single team fight. And until I think about my positioning or whatever every single team fight, I can't be happy. Because if you're just giving yourself general things of what to improve on, that's not good enough. Like, for example, in the Lucio review we just did, I do not want our Lucio player to say, okay, I need to work on my amp speed usage. No, it should be, I nail every single Lucio amp speed usage without fail, except for maybe 2 or 3. And any that are wasted, it's because my team messed up, not because I messed up. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's the goal. Like, give yourself something concrete. Like, give yourself a number. I'm going to do no fewer than, that's not going to happen 2 or 3 times, you know, in terms of how many times you make that mistake. And the alt thing is like about just taking pressure off of you because you don't worry as much about winning and losing. The whole thing about winning and losing, everybody cares about winning or losing. You want to win games. People say don't care about winning or losing. That's just kind of like a forehead statement. The goal is that you know you're going to care about winning or losing, but you're going to work at setting goals that give you some sort of confidence boost when you accomplish them. And that's why you need those specific goals, because if you don't have those specific goals, how do you feel like you're improving? No wonder you want to win or lose, because your goals right now are either so vague or not concrete, like not concrete enough to where it doesn't really feel like you're improving. For example, if I were to play a basketball game, a trained basketball, and I would not want to not worry about wins or losses. What I would want to work on is my shot percentage. I wouldn't, or like my layup percentage, for example, like the easy shot percentage. I would want to track the number of layups I miss every game and focus on cutting that down, and train to cut that down, right? I wouldn't just want to get a vague feeling about whether I think I improved or not. I want a hard number. I want to know, did I actually improve or not? I wouldn't say, all right, I need to work at my dribbling. No, I need to work at my right hand dribbling while I'm moving, or my left hand dribbling while I'm moving. And if I have video footage, I'm going to study it. Do I need to practice it more? And so the fear of failure, at least your failure, seems to result, or at least it could result from you not giving yourself concrete enough goals. So it feels like you're never really improving because you never really push yourself hard enough. And even if you do improve, you don't even know if you improve. Like, positive reinforcement is really powerful. It's a motivator. It encourages you to keep going. It encourages you to push past failure, because you know I failed at winning, but I didn't fail at what I was aiming out to do or setting out to do. So in your situation, you would fear failure less if you actually knew exactly what you needed to do and you knew exactly how much you were improving. And that's, I think, what needs to happen here. That would be my first step. And that, and along with, I don't know, getting over the fear of failure. It ultimately just has to be a lifestyle that you just have to keep practicing. So if this is something that, like, I don't think there is an easy answer to this. You need to just keep practicing. And because this is, it's a two-edged sword, though, because yes, it sucks, but it's also great, because this kind of stuff will affect your IRL a lot. If you're the type of person that thinks, like, whines and gripes and gets all upset over this Overwatch, then I guarantee you this is affecting you IRL, and if it hasn't already, it will later. So you need to attack this. This is not a serious, like, oh no, you're gonna die and you're nuts. This is just an issue. This needs to be fixed. You need to get over this. You need to get over yourself. It doesn't matter if you lose. Focus on improvement. Give yourself specific, hard, concrete goals, whether it's working out or Overwatch or fitness or health or work or whatever, and just get over it. Like, get over it. Like, it's gonna take work though. There's no just forehead thing. The solution might be a little simple, but it's gonna take work. But you have to give yourself more concrete goals. Like, more. Don't just. You need to give yourself something concrete. Do you think Hog is in a good state? No. I think the problem with Hog is. I think the vape with defensive cooldown was a good shift because it meant that he fed a little bit of less ult charge. But the problem with Hog is that he's a hero that revolves around a one-shot. But he still feeds a lot of ult charge. And he still struggles. I'm trying to think, what is the problem with Hog? Like, he still struggles to control space. Because he has really no defensive capabilities. He doesn't have Matrix. He doesn't have Vape. Like, I guess Vape counts as like a defensive capability because it reduces. Maybe like give him a little bit of armor. Maybe give him a little bit of armor. Maybe reduce hook cooldown. Or no, I don't know if I'd reduce hook cooldown. Give him a little bit of armor. Reduce his damage output. I think Whole Hog would be something that I would look at as well because I think Whole Hog is a really weak and bad ultimate. I don't know what I would do. But he's very much, hey, I hook you, one shot, you're dead. Or I'm completely worthless on the flank because I'm getting poked out every 2 seconds. He's a little like Doomfist in that aspect where he feels really obnoxious to play against when he's, but either that or completely worthless. There's not a lot of in between. Hog has also been victimized by power creep a little bit. Now that Sigma's a little weaker, we might see Hog a little more often. On Havana defending, when my team is near the gate of the last point, as Ana, how to decide between holding left or right side? I generally hold right side. Because left side you can be flanked. So if we're looking at like Havana, like here's your on defense, here's the choke, right? The awful choke, and there's like the high ground up here, right? There's the flank that people can do here, which I'm more concerned about. You can be flanked from up top here, so you'll need to keep an eye on that. But I'm more concerned about this flank right here. And also, I like being able to support any of my teammates who use this high ground here, and I can do that better from here. I don't think it matters that much though. I haven't put enough thought into it to give you a confirmed answer. So if nothing stands out to me right now, then I don't think it's critical enough. I think there's also a health pack on left side that's safer because I think they can flank. Look, they can technically flank you from underneath right as well. So I don't know. I think it's up to you. I don't think it's a really big deal. Just play near cover. How do all teams think about DPS hero pools and signature heroes when recruiting players? Is having a mixed hero pool considering bad, and why? Do they prefer players who specialize in certain heroes? So no, I think specialization is something that is good and helpful. But as you get up in ranks, having a more flexible hero pool is really good. So like basically, here's what you want. You want to have a relatively flexible hero pool, but not at the expense of being scuffed at all your heroes. So in other words, Owl teams would probably rather have a really strong Widow, Tracer, McCree, and they'll teach you how to play Sombra, right? Or they'd really like, you'd have a good Hanzo, Echo, Tracer, and they'll teach you how to play, Genji or whatever. But a lot of it is Owl teams will try and guess what heroes will be meta. Not guess, but they'll look for people that are generally more commonly meta heroes. Like Tracer is almost always a guy that you need a Tracer player. You need a Widow player. You need, nowadays you probably need a Hanzo or an Echo player. Having a Sombra player is another really big one because she comes in meta every now and then, and she's a little tricky to learn. So I think the idea is there's a balance. I coach limited hero pool, but when you get to the pro level, expanding your hero pool, as long as you're doing it well, is good. You don't need to play 8 or 9 heroes. It's not necessary at all. But if you look at somebody like who I've coached, like Backbone, he's good. He can play Hanzo, Echo, Genji, Mei, Tracer, and to an extent Sombra. And at any point in time, if any of those heroes become meta, he'll hard grind that hero and he'll pick it up really fast because he's had experience learning those heroes, so he kind of knows how to play them fairly well. And so if that hero becomes meta, he'll hard grind the mechanics, hard grind that player, and instantly he's good at the hero. And that's how it was. Like he was like great, best Mei, like one of the best Mei, one of the best Genjis, one of the best Echoes, the best Sombra, and then one of the best, if not the best Tracer. Subsequently, like meta. And that's because we worked really hard with him, but also because he put the time in. So like having a good hero pool is important, but what's more important is that you kind of have a general idea of how to play the hero and you can pick it up really quickly. All teams definitely do not like one tricks anymore, especially nowadays. The meta is too much in flux. Balance changes happen too fast, so it doesn't work. How do I become as clever as me? Wake up one day and say, I'm going to be brilliant, and then just do it. It's that simple. As Mercy, I find it very difficult to lock into a specific target when my team is positioned really close. Is there a way to fix it my settings or something I'm just going to have to work through? Chat, I don't know the answer to this. Does anybody in chat know if there's an answer with like Mercy Sense? Is that a thing? I think that's a thing, isn't it? Let's test it. Part of it is going to be like a little bit of practice, like getting your crosshair lineup just right. But I'm actually curious, is there a way to adjust your... I feel like there is. I swear there is. If anybody in chat knows, let me know. This might be just a, hey, you just have to practice it, and that settings don't matter that much. But let's see. Guardian taking on versus head. Toggle guardian. Maybe that's it here.
I'll be watching over you.
Whoa, what did I just do? Oh, my latency is really high. Why am I in Australia? My latency is way too high. I'm in Australia. I'm in Australia. Why does this do this? It puts me in Australia. Yeah, see, look. I was at 270 ms.
I'm here.
All right, so let's try that really fast. Let's toy with it. So the way I always toy with settings to find out how they work is I turn them to basically 0. Is it beam sensitivity? Or no, it's guardian angel sensitivity. Or beam. No, it's beam. Beam is what we're looking at here. So let's turn it to basically 10.
Damage boost engaged.
I think we figured it out.
You've got this.
Right there. Okay. So if we turn that to 100, I'm assuming it's very forgiving with where we beam. And that's where the mess might happen. Yeah, there it is. We found it. We found it. So the way to fix it, for the person who asked, is to turn down your sensitivity until you find a sweet spot. So you can be more accurate with what you're aiming at. So for me, maybe I should go like 70. Right? That way I can't just beam him from here. Maybe you could go even further than that. Honestly, you could probably go even further. Depends on how good your mercy aim is, you know? Let's we go like 60? We go like 60? Yeah? So it'll be even closer. See? Right there. I don't... Yeah, so there you go. But yeah, practice will help with that. But hey, also there's your setting.
You should be at peak performance levels.
I'm so washed at super jumping. Hey, got it. Alright. We got it, boys. We got it. Alright, back to the questions. Okay, I was just making sure that we're all set. Is there a reason Jonak is positioned here rather than further up? Let's look.
열시 못 나갔네?
이제 붙여줘. 뭐야 버렸네. 오늘 깨우지마.
나 딜.
일로.
우리는 빼야 돼요.
불 볼게. 계속해.
So there's two really important reasons why. One is because there's no real cover between now and here in the bridge. So Jonak, the only other position for him to position would be like in this little... Oh my gosh, I don't have Epic Pin open up anymore. Hang on. I hit a hotkey and it like skipped me ahead in the YouTube video instead of where I wanted to be. So like, he would have to position here. Oh, why is it doing this? I'm an Epic Pin, please. Sorry, chat. So he would have to be positioned... Oh, geez, this is so annoying. It's like, is this the new Epic Pin thing? I don't like this at all. It's hotkeyed now to where, like, I can't... Yeah, unfortunate. So he would have to be positioned to up here. Like he would have to be positioned in this alcove over here, which maybe he doesn't want that because it's not as good of an angle. And so this is really the only cover he has unless he just stands out in the open here. And the reason why he can't do that is because he can get easily poked from high ground, right? So he's playing underneath high ground, which is ironically safer because for them to get to him, they must drop. They might not even, which is obviously a high risk, high reward for them. So this, they could just spam him out, easy kill, right? And he's got nowhere to go. This place, he has good sightlines and he's safe. That's why. Wait, so now it's epic pin is working.
몬스터 뭐야?
Alright, so anyway, there's your answer. Sorry if this is the wrong text channel. I've been watching. Whoops. I'm watching a lot of your videos and streams recently. Enjoy what I'm seeing. Thank you. Is this how to get good Overwatch video? You're talking about making a goal and achieving the goal. What are some of the goals I can set on different heroes for myself? So the thing is that like I can't really tell you what your goals ought to be. It really should be you, and it really should be something that you take time to look over and self-review. So you've been spending a lot of time watching videos and streams and things like that. So you should probably have a pretty good idea, or at least you're learning and getting a better idea of how to play the heroes that you play. So you play DPS, mostly projectile. So, you know, the Tor VOD, you saw Genji today. You can look back in my previous reviews, and I've coached Hanzo, I've coached Echo, I've coached Mei, I believe, on YouTube you can find, and you will find different reviews. So you can use that plus your own self-review, looking over your own replays to find out what things that you think you need to work on, and you need to set those as some goals. I don't like arbitrary goals. I think a lot of the times you'll see the reviews that I go over very similar things, but I still don't like it. I want you to personalize like your feedback according to what you need to improve on. Because like maybe we see a Genji with really good like positioning, he's got decent positioning, but he doesn't know how to use Blade, or like terrible mechanics and he is good with Blade, you know, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So you have to like specialize. Now obviously you might not really know what your weaknesses are, so that's why you self-review. And then I already hear, well, I don't know what to be looking for. Well, look for, can I position better? Could I be using my cooldowns better? Am I doing the right thing here? And the thing is with self-review is it takes practice as well. Like, so the first time I self-reviewed, I found like no errors. Like unironically, this was a couple years ago when I was improving. I was like really struggling to find errors, but I kept self-reviewing like once every 3 or 4 days. Look at a self-review for just for 15, 20 minutes. Hey, Zonal. And eventually I found stuff. I was starting to get a better eye. I started to learn how to be more self-critical and actually gave myself feedback. So I think this is, I'm not going to give you general feedback. You need to give yourself general feedback. You can use my VODs as baselines, but ultimately off of your replays, figure out what your main errors are and try and work at those. Educate yourself and how to educate yourself, if that makes sense. I feel like what's keeping me under 4.3 is the understanding of meta things, pros to allocators. Is there understanding these max without receiving such a low coaching? No. Like, I feel like what I say about map control and stuff, like you guys have seen my pro level reviews, like I legit like talk about like map control and like angles and stuff. The same stuff I go over with the gold and plat players, I'm going over with the GM players as well. Like everybody needs to work at that. So I'd work at that, and then ultimately again just be like assume that every single team fight I could have positioned better, I could have used my cooldowns better, and then that's your standpoint for it. So I don't think like I think what you're saying is like, well, I don't know like what is the meta and like what is the secret strategy that everybody's doing that I'm not doing. Well, the only other thing that I could think that maybe you could do if you're really struggling with that is you could go to like, because if you're 3 or 4.2 or 3.9 or whatever, 4K or whatever, you can look at enemy counterparts and see what they're doing. So like you're playing BAP, the enemy team's playing BAP. Well, what is the enemy BAP doing that you're not doing? You know, if they're higher ranked than you. So study the enemy VODs. You know, if they're playing up against somebody who's playing your hero and is higher ranked than you, study their VODs. What are they doing? And figure out, and like and then try and figure out why they're doing that, of course. I have this issue where I start to dart my eyes to different areas and can't concentrate due to pressure just exactly where the enemies are positioned. Would you say going to a game study to scout enemies is a good idea? I think there are like 15 people in the enemy team for crying out loud. What would you recommend? Early birthday boy? What? I mean, you could definitely set that as a goal of like, my job is for every consistently through team fights, even if my mechanics drop off or my positioning drops off, that I'm aware of enemy team's position, that like check enemy teams. So my goal now is that I'm gonna, every single team fight, I'm gonna check enemy team positioning, That's a good thing you could practice, like awareness like that, for sure. But I don't understand the early birthday either. But you know, but going into game to slow scout enemies, that's not a bad idea to practice for sure. Do you have any tips for improving ult tracking or Holy Saint Spilo? Yeah. practice. Start with structure. So don't just like, well, I think they have grav, and yeah, I think they're close to blade, and they might have beat. I don't think shatter's like 30, 40. No. Tanks, tanks, DPS, supports. Go down the list quickly. Do they have shatter or grav? Not sure. Okay, not sure. DPS? Do they have, you know, blade or pulse? Do they have beat or trance? Bang, 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 bang. Structure. If you saw them use it, say they don't have it. If you're sure they have it, then say they have it. If you're not sure, say they might be close, but you're not sure. But do it quick. The thing with ult tracking is it's ridiculously easy. All it does is it takes practice. It's ridiculously simple. There's nothing complicated. There's no advanced tricks or tips. It's literally just being structured and doing it quickly. There's no tricks or tips. Do it quick. Be it structured. So many players, even in like contenders and stuff, are like, oh, they beat this and that. No. Bang, 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 bang. And you should start ult tracking as soon as the fight is ending and not once it's already over in your head. And then you can spit it out like right away because you've already been thinking about it. Don't start thinking about it just as the team fight's starting. Start thinking about it as the team fight is over. So like you guys are like, let's say you're up like 4. Start thinking about ult tracking right now. Don't wait until the team fight's over to start thinking about it. Okay. Which heroes would you recommend? Well, don't start. Okay, really quick. Don't start thinking about it when you're only down one, like when you're down 1 or up 1. You know, it needs to be like 3 or 4, right? 3 or 4, and then you can start doing it. Which heroes would you recommend someone pick up who's trying to climb to diamond DPS and above if they play soldier and tracer mostly? I mean, McCree's pretty strong right now. McCree's pretty strong. I don't know. McCree or Ashe, probably. Those are probably 2 of the stronger DPS right now. How do I reduce time I need to ult track between fights? I just kind of answered that question earlier, but like basically your job is to essentially start your ult tracking as the fight's over, either won or lost. But as you guys are like up 4 or down 4, start ult tracking in your mind, and then it's literally just spitting out. Just you've already thought about their tanks, you've already thought about the DPS, and so all you have to do is think about supports, and then you can just spit it out, like recite it. The goal is to not think and talk with ult tracking. The goal is to just talk because you've already done the thinking before the fight was even over. And then obviously tanks, DPS, supports. Order. Structure. Do not popcorn. Structure. Go down the list. And don't give details. And nobody cares about 60%, whether there's 60% or 70% to Earth Shatter. Nobody gives a rep. Close to Shatter, that's good enough. Halfway to Shatter, good enough. No Shatter, that's good enough. Nobody cares if they're 20 or 71, 70. I mean, I know like Jane for a while, like he said something about, I think it was a closer or some Dallas guy who was like, oh man, he got within 5% of ult tracking like almost every single time. Nobody cares. Like, to be honest, like that's cool and all, but nobody cares. It doesn't matter. They're close, they don't have it, nobody cares. Like obviously knowing the difference between 80% and 20% is kind of useful because they're going to get at that fight or not. But beyond that, it just doesn't matter. Also, what can I do against autopilot? Like, how can I force myself to think more actively while playing? Have something to think about. like the body is built to autopilot to save energy. Like, it just doesn't want to do anything. But if you give it something to think about, then there's your autopilot. Like, the goal is like, obviously, like everyone wants to be able to play conscious and be aware of everything that's happening and every single cooldown and every single positional decision and every ult you use, and you always know where the enemy team is and you ult track perfectly. But like in all reality, like that's like flow state, and that's hard to get into. You know, it doesn't always happen. So in the meantime, you just control what you can control. Think about 1 or 2 things, whether that's your positioning, or maybe your ult tracking. Like nail your ult tracking. You know, nail your ult tracking. Legit, nail your ult tracking. No mistakes. There's your autopilot. No autopiloting with ult tracking. The next scrim you do, or the next like rank game, or whatever you guys do, legit, no autopiloting on that at all. I don't care if you autopilot between in the middle of fights, nobody gives a rep. But you better nail your ult tracking. And right there, what you'll start to notice is that as you're focusing on ult tracking, you're kind of forcing yourself to stay more alert to other stuff as well. But it doesn't, even if you don't, it doesn't matter. This is what you're worried about. Autopilot, like you can't autopilot while you're driving if you're thinking about changing lanes perfectly. You can't autopilot while driving if you're thinking about perfectly maintaining a speed of 65 miles per hour. You can't autopilot while driving if you're paying attention to the drivers around you and making sure that you're maintaining safe distances. Because you're forcing yourself to think about something specific. Don't go into you need to give yourself specific direction. Is it worth tracking to the ult to the nearest 20%? No. I'd say like 30%, 40%, something like that. Don't have mid-fight potentially, or they have for sure. Yep, that's pretty much good enough right there.